As a British citizen, there are only a few things that I love. Tea, the Queen, and of course, football. So football is a huge part of my life, always has been. It toys with me emotionally, and so does anime. Even after all these years of watching anime, I cannot say that I've ever watched a good football anime. This year we are given multiple football anime, which is music to my ears. I have been a huge fan of the Blue Lock manga, and was certain that no other football or even sports anime can come close. But after watching Ao Ashi, it may actually come close, or maybe eventually take the crown of the best sports anime. So to sum up the essence of the show, Ao plays football in a high school, and is practically the best. A big fish in a small pond, if you will. He then successfully qualifies to be a part of a youth setup at a team in Tokyo, where he is anything but a big fish. In fact, it highlights just how bad he is. This is also Ao's last chance to break into a career of a footballer. What is so great is how it highlights the gulf between school football and actual professional youth football. It is very much more down to earth style sports anime rather than Blue Lock. Ao Ashi is produced by Production IG, and you know what else is produced by Production IG? Haikyuu. Whilst they are written by two different mangakas, the feeling from them both is very similar. Like I said, it is very down to earth. It feels very real. The main character is naive, whilst having an array of other supporting characters. What I love perhaps the most about the show is that it goes into depth about how tactically the game of football is played. Ao is used as an average viewer, someone who doesn't have a knowledge of the basic tactics. The show talks about passing triangles, the striker to come deep, how players shift positions for both offensive and defensive plays. I really love the tactical side of football. It expresses the manager's ideas, their own philosophy on how football should be played. Whilst there is a lot more to it, especially with the likes of Pep Guardiola, who has revolutionised football with every team he has managed. What is great is this anime gives a viewer more perspective. I have had many friends across the years saying, why do you just watch men against other men kick a football around like it's some sort of insult? But at professional levels, it is much more than that. There is the individual skill of the player, but also there is the board game of football that is being played. Dummy runs, overlaps, inverted fullbacks. Football has really changed so much that there is so many options on how to play it. It is no surprise that this manga was first published in 2015, as football perhaps 10 or 20 years before that were not heavily as focused on exact tactics, but produced more of a free-flowing football where the players can express themselves more. This can be seen with the older managers of today. Whilst I am here to talk about the anime mainly, I think it's important to appreciate just what the anime has news from the world of football. It not only educates the viewer on what there is to think about whilst playing football, it also acts as growth for Ao. As like I said, he is certainly far from the best in this team. Without spoiling, there are many twists that leave both the viewer and Ao in shock. To see Ao pushed to his limits both physically and mentally is very interesting. Like I said, there is a lot of knowledge of football in this series, so it got me looking at who wrote it. And as I looked at Mal, it had two people listed as those who contributed to the story. One of them being Naoko Uno. Uno himself is not a mangaka as such, but a sports writer. I would imagine that he is heavily helped for providing information on the more in-depth side to football. There is not a lot of information on him regarding this, just that he is a sports writer, sports journalist, and manga author, which has mainly been Ao Ashi. Having his knowledge mixed with Yugo Kobayashi's amazing storytelling created Ao Ashi. Something so refreshing by having this combination. As of right now, there have not been any lengthy football matches, which is quite unusual. It perhaps spends 10 minutes or so of the episode sometimes focusing on the match, but it certainly does not feel like the main focus. The characters drive the show and how football affects their lives, on how they play, who they look up to. Everyone has a reason to be there. Everyone has a different background. You even have a guy belonging to a biker gang. This anime is made in 2022, and even now that trope is still going strong. With different backgrounds comes different playstyles and where they play. The main character Ao remains determined regardless of the obstacles that are in his way. There are times where he is down and seemingly out. However, the motivation to exceed for not only himself, but but also his family pushes him to bounce back. And to me, that seems quite a subtle comparison to a footballer's mentality. A footballer will play hundreds, thousands of games, and obviously you cannot win them all. But what is most important is how you bounce back. The thoughts that protrude your mind after a loss can take over. It takes a strong will to get over it, as there are always more matches ahead. Aoashi is surprisingly good. A lot of sports anime have failed to produce a good football anime, but Aoashi has stood on its own. If you do not care for football, the way that anime uses the sport still makes the viewer intrigued, and perhaps it may even spark a new interest or hobby of the sport. Even the human side of the anime, the characters' interactions are one of the main draws to the story. If you have already not guessed, I would highly recommend Aoashi. As of now, this is one of the best sports anime out there. But are we going to be blown away for what's to come in the not too distant future? That is it from me. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have, do not forget to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.